Prawn here with some more Bellwright tips and tricks. I want to talk to you about a few different things that might find useful, one of which is building your strength. Strength is really important in the game and can make a big difference because it increases the amount of damage you do with every hit. I'd recommend playing co-op if you can, because having a friend split the danger makes life a lot easier because you can both hit enemies from a different direction and catch them in a different way, but you can use villagers to achieve the same thing. In a previous video, I recommended turning raids off from the settings to make your life a little bit easier. But if you're trying to improve strength, you can actually set the raid's frequency to high and the enemy's danger to low, which means that you get a lot of them coming to raid your village, but they don't have much strength and there's not many of them to deal with. So you can see this raid that's coming only has 3 people in it. You can see obviously the blobs on the map to see where the enemies are. Brigands, tax collector party is going to be more difficult to deal with. But you can see the raid here is coming from the middle of the map. It's going to take a while to get here. But once you're dealing with that, you obviously have less people to deal with and you don't get surrounded quite so often, which means that you can keep on battering them and increasing your strength along the way. The added bonus is you might also improve one-handed or two-handed abilities. These attributes can also increase the amount of damage that you do. I'd recommend focusing on one or the other. I'm really good, for example, with one-handed weapons. I have a much higher skill level there, and that does more damage overall. I'd also found that if you walk backwards when fighting a large group of enemy, it makes it a bit more difficult for them to catch up with you, and therefore you don't get surrounded quite so often, so you can just walk backwards slowly while also swinging. If you have a long sword, this can be particularly useful because you can keep them at a good distance and still hit them quite effectively. This will help if you then increase your ability and your skill with that weapon over time, because then you obviously have a boosted level on either one-handed or two-handed abilities. Fighting enemies one-on-one makes it easier to block, but often you'll find yourself surrounded by loads of enemies, and this is where you'll die the most. So practicing these sorts of things can be handy, and dealing with low-level raids can also really help. Use companions carefully. Take a look at the top right of the screen. You'll see my companion that I've got with me has been injured in a battle that we just had recently. You've got the little injured marker next to them, broken bones and blood symbol essentially there. Now, what might happen is if you're not careful, if you don't give them time to recover and heal, they might well die. You can see this one has died. So if they get injured in battle and then the next day you take them back into battle again, they may well get killed completely. This is a real problem and something to watch out for, because you obviously don't want to lose them. They used to work in Mining Town under Lyme alongside Hubert, who's also fallen in battle, but he's only been killed once, so he'll respawn the next day, whereas the other person that was a companion had been killed twice and now is completely dead. They've now gone from my list of population, so they cannot be used anymore, and obviously I'd have to then go and get someone else to replace them. And they worked in Mining Town under Lyme, so there was only one person there who's going to be working at that outpost. You do, however, get the renown back, so I've gone from 2,000 renown to 9,000, so that's one benefit, but it's still not great. In a previous video, I showed you how to use deliveries to and from outposts to make sure that things are getting delivered to your base that you're collecting, for example, reeds. But you can also use this delivery system to send food from your main base to the outpost. So use a selection of foods that you know you're going to have on storage and on hand at your main base regularly, and get them sent daily to your outpost. That way people aren't hungry constantly outpost and then running around foraging for food and wasting time that they could be spending doing the actual job that they're at the outpost for. So this is something to watch out for, making sure they've got enough food but not so much that it spoils and goes to waste. Another thing you can use the delivery system for is helping with construction. So, for example, I'm trying to build a pit at a mining area where there's iron ore and tin. Now, the pit is quite complicated to build. It requires a lot of thatch, hardwood planks, and other things that you can see from the list, and obviously takes some time to construct with the building hammer as well. Carrying all these things back and forth yourself from your main base to the outpost is a pain. But if you go to the delivery section, you can set it up so that some things are delivered directly from your base to the outpost, and then they're ready to be used at the outpost. You can also set it to happen one time. So we know we don't need to set this daily, for example, but I know how much granite I need at the outpost to construct this pit, so I can just send the right amount one time to the outpost, and then make sure there's also carpenter's hammers being delivered or at least in the local storage. Set some of the bots at the outpost to have construction as one of their tasks, and they should then take the stuff out of the storage container and start using it to build that building, and eventually after some time it will get built. Now you might have a delivery capacity where only a certain amount of things can be delivered at once, and obviously if you've also got food and other things being sent there, you might have to spread out the deliveries over a few days, or maybe you make less each day, or stick to doing one thing first and then come back and set another delivery setting ready for the next item that you need to be sent over. But you're just basically going through your list and making sure all the things are delivered. This happens automatically, so it saves your villagers from going all the way back to the base, collecting the things and coming back, and yourself as well. So it happens automatically at midnight, and it's just a good way to optimize the building in your outpost to construct better quality buildings without having to do a lot of work yourself.